Patrick Mountney, Director with the Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the members meeting, where we will learn more about the candidates running in the provincial election for Northumberland Peterborough South. As we begin, we would like to formally recognize the traditional keepers of this land and specifically our neighbors of the Atterville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. Welcome to the Gunshot Treaty Lands of 1788. It is on these lands and along the shores of the Big Lake that the Mississauga and Anishinaabe met with the Crown to facilitate the opening of these lands for settlement. Let us be reminded of the responsibility we all share in respecting these lands and waters that give us life and sustain our livelihoods. Today's format will include the first 45 minutes dedicated to questions that have been prepared based on feedback from the Chamber Network and our members. The final 15 minutes will be open for questions from the audience. The meeting will be recorded and, barring any technical difficulties, will be shared through the Chamber YouTube channel. I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for today's meeting, Dale Bateman, who is also a director with the Chamber.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And welcome to everyone. We're going to get started with some opening introductions from the candidates. First off, I would like to extend regrets from David Piccini, who is the candidate for the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. David is unable to attend today and sends his regrets as follows. I am so sorry that I am unable to attend the Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce virtual candidates meeting. I always look forward to engaging with local businesses, and I regret that I will not be able to participate in the lively discussion. I urge any member to reach out to my office at 289-252-2102 or at david@davidpiccini.ca if you have any questions. I hope to see everyone soon and look forward to future opportunities to connect. Now we'll continue with the candidate introductions, beginning with Maxwell Groves, representing the Green Party of Ontario. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for their introduction.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maxwell Groves. I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. When I started my campaign, I started on the premise that this government wasn't listening to my riding, and I was right. I'm shocked that 60% of this riding didn't vote in the last election. And I feel it's because they feel they have no voice and that their vote doesn't matter. I didn't expect to be a candidate so soon. I thought I'd have a few more years to prepare. But here we are, an election to outlast Trump, an election to spend billions of dollars on a tunnel under the 401. I'm just an ordinary person, but I think these sound ludicrous to me. No, they just sound dumb. Why are we the only province that needed an election because of tariffs? When I look at our riding, it seems life is no better than it was 7 years ago. Everything is more expensive, including property tax. That's a Doug Ford tax. We're also in the midst of a housing crisis. This isn't by accident. It was intentional to benefit corporate landlords and private interest. And millennials like me have had to pay the price. The Ontario Greens have a plan to build 2 million new homes within existing urban boundaries and cut red tape to make it easier to build multiplexes in cities and towns so people like me can realize the dream of home ownership in this province.
Thank you very much, Maxwell. Next, we're going to hear an introduction from Bruce LePage, representing the Ontario NDP.
Hello, I'm Bruce LePage, your NDP candidate. I grew up in Nova Scotia and I moved to Ontario in 1988. After a decade in Toronto, Sally, my wife, and our son, Will, moved to Northumberland to settle for good. Sally grew up in Cobourg, so we knew this was the right location for us to raise our family. But over the past decade or so, I've seen life getting harder for working families and for young people starting out. I have seen seniors start to fall into poverty after spending their lives working hard and saving. I've seen our hospitals become overcrowded and our schools start to crumble. Government should work for everyone, not just the well-heeled or well-connected. And that is why I decided to run in this election. We can hire more doctors and nurses. We can repair our schools. We can hire the people needed to help our students thrive. We can rebuild our out-of-date infrastructure. We can build homes people can afford. We, the NDP, have a plan to tackle the high costs of everyday items like groceries. We will tariff-proof our economy. We will protect our farmland. We will build transit to get people moving. We will work with industry, business, unions, and workers to secure well-paying jobs for all Ontarians. We will work with our federal government and the provinces to improve east-to-west trade and to grow our markets overseas. We will fix funding for post-secondary education and training so that our young people can compete for great jobs and older individuals can retrain for new jobs. We will make it easier for students to afford post-secondary education by making OSAP better. And we can do all this while working toward a greener economy and fighting climate change. I came to Ontario all those years ago for the same reason so many others came before me and so many others after. Ontario was the place of opportunity. And I want to bring that opportunity back to Ontario. Those who know me know they can trust me to keep my word, and you can trust me, Marit Stiles, and the NDP to fight hard for you every day. Let's do this together.
Thank you, Bruce. Next, for opening introductions, we're going to go to Dorothy Nerona, representing the Liberal Party of Ontario.
Thanks very much, Dale. I'm not sure if anyone remembers me, but we actually were residents of Campbellford for about 8 years. It was Campbellford that lured us to Northumberland 22 years ago. I don't know if it was the cheese, the chocolate, or the beer. However, it ended up being an amazing place to bring our 2-year-old at the time, who's now 24. I don't know how that happened. But he was a proud Campbellford Colt. And interestingly enough, this was also the place where I realized Campbellford's very far from Toronto. And after a long career in business, employee benefits and pensions, and healthcare, I was actually working at North York General Hospital when we moved to Campbellford. I decided it's time to get a job closer to home. So at the ripe age of 41, I went back to teachers college and became a business teacher, working initially at the CIS in Clarington, but also in Port Hope, at ENSS, and currently now at CCI, would have been Cobourg East at the time. But prior to all of that, I actually worked with Dave Noble at CDHS, and that's where I got my teaching background that I could apply. Campbellford is a great community, and I look forward to representing you as your MPP.
Thank you, Dorothy. All right, we're going to now get into the questions. Keep in mind that the candidates have not been supplied with these questions in advance. And just a quick note for everyone in attendance, if you would like to see the best view for the meeting today, I'd recommend you change your view setting to multi-speaker view. That would be in the top right corner of your Zoom window. And that way you can see all of the candidates and as they answer the questions. So our first question, candidates will have 2 minutes in order to respond to this question. And each reply we have chosen by random draw as to which candidate will answer first, second, and third, and that will continue through each of the questions. So our first question, in response to ongoing U.S. tariff threats, a recent Ontario Chamber of Commerce Business Confidence Survey found that 80% of business decision makers believe tariffs would negatively impact confidence in Ontario's economy, with 67% expecting direct harm to their own business, primarily through decreased sales and increased costs. Given these concerns, what specific measures will your party take to support Ontario businesses in navigating potential trade disruptions and ensuring economic stability? And our first reply is coming from Bruce, please. 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, we all know that the election was called on the basis of tariffs. A bit of a red herring about Mr. Ford, who just wants to get ahead of a federal election and wants to secure his own job for 4 years, not worry too much about us. But tariffs are a real threat. First of all, we have to realize that this is a federal responsibility first and foremost, and a Team Canada responsibility secondly. The provinces have to work together. An NDP government would work with our provincial counterparts and our federal counterpart to do what is necessary to protect Ontario jobs and jobs in Northumberland. Retaliation may be necessary, but that needs to be coordinated across the country. It wouldn't be a one-off from one group or another. We can build on our local economic capacity in agriculture, healthcare, education, and small and medium businesses to support self-reliance. We need to look at trade east and west through our other provinces and overseas to Asia and Europe in this new era where we cannot trust our traditional trading partner in the US. We need to create new supply chains across these provinces as well. We need to invest more in Ontario by speeding up infrastructure projects. There are thousands of schools that need repairs. There are millions of homes that need to be built. There's transit that needs to be constructed. All of this can be done by building in Ontario and using Ontario goods and services. Marge Salas said, if you lose your job and you want to work, we are going to put you to work. We'll identify infrastructure projects that can be accelerated, fixing schools, building more homes, building more transit. We will promote Buy Ontario through provincial procurement. We will do all of this to protect Ontario businesses and Ontario consumers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Next to respond will be Dorothy. 2 minutes.
It's going to be interesting. We actually had the same slate of candidates in Port Hope yesterday, and true to the green, there was a lot of recycling of ideas, and that indicates and it reflects the fact that all of our parties are aligned in the sense that this is a real threat, and in fact, both all three of our candidates, all three of our leaders, Bonnie Crombie, Merritt Stiles, and Mike Schreiner, all said we're behind any sort of measures that are required to fight this tariff. There is no need for a mandate. You have a majority, and we're behind you. So it's what's the word? Regretful that we're losing a month, that we could be actually taking action on protecting from the tariff by a needless election that's costing $189 million. But again, that's likely an idea that's going to be recycled amongst all of us to be plunged in an election in the middle of February, when really we should be banding together as a team to come up with a way of protecting ourselves from a common threat, and that's tariffs and our friend to the south. Regardless, we absolutely have to become stronger. East to west, it's not just about buying Canadian, it's about selling Canadian. And when it's and I used this analogy yesterday, and I'm going to recycle it as well because I'm also very green. It's easier to buy or sell honey to Michigan than it is to Saskatchewan. And why haven't we addressed that? And like everything else, I guess it needs to become a crisis before we actually do something about it. The Liberal Party will reduce business taxes by 50%. We will reinvest in our post-secondary institutions so we can make our province more competitive. And we will support business to become prepared to deal with this threat.
Thank you, Dorothy. And our final response will be from Maxwell.
Thank you. To echo what Dorothy said, all of the candidates that have showed up want to be aggressive on tariffs. Donald Trump has given us an opportunity to diversify our economy, to develop our own industries, and remove barriers to interprovincial trade. We don't have to wait out Trump. We need to outpace him. This is our wake-up call to stop being so reliant on one market. It'll take work, it'll take partnerships, not bullying. Mike Schreiner is a person who is not panicking over Trump. Mike is demonstrating calm, thoughtful leadership that we need, and he wants to work with other provinces and the federal government to have a united front against tariffs.
Thank you, Maxwell. We'll move on now to question 2. The Minister of Natural Resources has placed a freeze on Conservation Authority fees, which have caused an increase to municipal levies to cover the shortfall. This freeze is seen as downloading to the municipalities. If elected, would you support removing the freeze on Conservation Authority fees? And would you consider increasing the provincial transfer payments to conservation authorities? Our first response will come from Dorothy.
Sorry about that. Yes. And I'd actually like to take that a little bit further. There has been way too much downloading on municipalities on so many levels. We have to start looking at those responsibilities that are provincial, and allow the municipalities more autonomy and more freedom to address local issues.
Thank you. I should have mentioned the response time for this question is 1 minute. Next to respond will be Maxwell, please.
As Dorothy mentioned, there might be a little bit of recycling in this meeting. We definitely need to take the onus off of municipalities and stop the downloading. We need to upload conservation efforts to the province.
Thank you. And finally, in response, we'll hear from Bruce.
Thanks. And once again, yes, we will definitely do that. And Merit Stiles has already said that she will upload the costs of transit and supportive housing away from the municipalities back to the province where they belong, and work at also uploading more of the infrastructure costs that municipalities are carrying to free up municipalities to do their business and let the province carry the burden that they should for housing, transit, and conservation.
Thank you. We'll move on now to question number 3, and the candidates will have 1.5 minutes each to respond to this question. Labor shortages are a major challenge for businesses in Trent Hills, particularly in tourism, manufacturing, and hospitality. If elected, what policies would your party implement at elementary, secondary, and post-secondary institutions to ensure businesses have access to a skilled workforce, and how would you support training programs that align with rural labor market demands? Our first respondent will be Maxwell, please.
Thank you. First and foremost, we do have a great education system, but we need to remove barriers to entry. We need to create pathways for adults to re-educate themselves and get into trades and other skills that are in demand. We need to put more money into updating schools and updating technology to reflect the times.
Thank you. Our next response will come from Bruce, please.
Okay, thank you. We are very bullish on education. We will restore the money that the Ford government has cut, the per student funding of $1,500 per year per student. We will restore that, and we will revisit the funding formula to better meet the needs of our students. We'll repair the backlog of school repairs, and to about $830 million a year. We're going to hire more staff in the schools, teachers, EAs, custodians, to make sure students have a good learning environment. We will restore funding to community colleges, especially in the trades and medical fields. And we will increase the base funding for all of the sector in post-secondary, university and college and trade schools. We will fix OSAP to better meet student needs, and we'll change the loans to grants. Our overall goal is to have training and education available for all Ontarians of any age to make sure that they are able to compete in a new economy as it changes in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on now to question number 4. This question also
Wait a minute.
will have...
Wait a minute. Hello.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dorothy.
That's okay.
Please go ahead with your response.
Like,
Thank you.
my favorite of all. So, so I've had the benefit or not benefit of actually being in this school system up until 2 weeks ago. And I have to say it's been a very rough 6 years. Bruce, I think, only retired about a year and a half ago. Bruce, you have no idea. You have literally no idea. I received a photograph from a colleague yesterday that literally made me weep. And that was my computer lab that I taught students accounting, entrepreneurship, business leadership on my trusty desktops, which had Excel and Word, and I had them all prepared. They would come back to me after after going to post-secondary and saying, Nerona, I'm owning this. I'm the top of my class. Thanks so much for teaching me this. My desktops were gone. Every single one of my desktops yesterday had disappeared, and it's Chromebooks only. I have no idea what has transpired. I'm still actually what's the word the kids say? I'm rattled. Our government is going backwards with respect to preparing our students for the workforce. And that's just at the secondary level. And when you look at post-secondary, funding cuts, Loyalist College, eliminating trade courses. We need to get back to investing in our youth and investing in our economy through our youth.
Thank you, Dorothy. Apologies again.
No worries.
Question number 4 is next. And again, we'll have candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond. The lack of affordable and available housing is limiting business growth in Trent Hills by making it difficult to attract and retain workers. What is your plan to address the housing crisis in rural Ontario, and how will you work with municipalities to accelerate housing development? Our first response will come from Bruce, please.
Okay, thank you. We need to get back, governments need to get back in the business of building homes. Several decades ago, we built a lot of affordable housing, but the federal Liberals and the provincial Conservatives at the time stopped all of that. We need to get back to allowing municipalities to build homes. We need the province to fund that. The NDP government would fund municipal housing, affordable housing, to all municipalities. That would be uploaded to the province. We would build 60,000 supportive housing units with wraparound support for our most tenuous and tenuous tenants. We would fix rent control. We would close the loopholes so that rents can be more affordable and people cannot be rent evicted from their apartments. We would stop building on greenbelt and on farmlands, and we would put in regulations to allow density increases in urban areas and towns, allowing fourplexes and the such, so that people can be close to where they work and close to the amenities that they need. The government, the provincial government, would support municipalities with direct funding for housing development.
Thank you. Our next response to this question will come from Dorothy, please.
Thank you. It really seems like housing under our current government is a one solution only. It's McMansions on the outskirts of the GTA, and what that has resulted in is a migration, from our perspective eastward, which has an impact on housing. It has an impact on the prices of homes. So interestingly, one of the first steps of solving rural is solving urban. And when we look at the zoning within those urban areas to look at more creative solutions, looking at, yes, fourplexes are okay. I'm baffled at the concept of why this is an issue. Door knocking in Cobourg, in Amherst, I was looking at a building and I counted. I'm like, 6. There are 6 apartments in this one building. It's beautiful. Like the whole NIMBYism about having creative solutions for housing is spilling over to become an issue for us in rural as well. Rent control obviously is something that absolutely has to come back. We have to eliminate the development charges in terms of when you look at some cases as much as $170,000, and within the Liberal plan, that is part of it, as well as eliminating the land transfer tax for first-time home buyers and seniors downsizing.
Thank you. And our final response to this question will be from Maxwell, please.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, the Ontario Greens want to build 2 million new homes within existing urban boundaries. So we don't want to pave over any more farmland. I can tell you as a millennial, I have no interest in living in a subdivision. I want to live in walkable, dense communities. I grew up in a triplex. It was one of the best experiences I could have ever imagined because my grandma lived next door to me. She was instrumental in raising me. This is how we create communities. We create communities where you can actually go and visit your neighbors, your family, and not have to hop in a car. We need to cut red tape to make it easier to build these sort of buildings, the sort of buildings that people like me want to live in. We also need to make it affordable. We need to eliminate the land transfer tax for first time home buyers, to bring down prices, and also remove development charges on all homes, condos, and apartments under 2,000 square feet. We can create affordable communities by making an affordable community fund to help municipalities build the housing infrastructure that suits their needs. Building supportive and affordable housing should have never been downloaded onto the municipalities. It's a provincial prerogative and it should be re-uploaded back to the province.
Thank you. Moving on now to our fifth question, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to this question. Tourism is a major economic driver for Trent Hills, but rural tourism operators face challenges such as seasonal employment, limited public transportation, and marketing competition with large urban centers. What policies, excluding funding as it will be included in the next question, would your party introduce to support tourism development in rural Ontario, particularly in communities like Trent Hills? Our first response will be from Maxwell, please.
Well, as someone if anyone was listening last night, they might be sick of me talking about transit. However, I think transit is the silver bullet we need to get tourism in the area. We need to bring the GO train out here. We already have the infrastructure. There's 2 rail corridors that run through Northumberland. We need to get the train going, but we also need to create connections that are not the municipality's responsibility to pay for. We have to create transit hubs and transit corridors throughout our riding so that people can get around freely without needing private car ownership. Doing this will help get people who don't have a car into our community, spending money and supporting our local businesses.
Thank you. Our next response will come from Bruce, please.
Thank you. I echo Max in that we need to look at transit to get people from the major urban population centers to Northumberland. When they're here, they love being here. Better train service, better connections to the small communities throughout Northumberland are very important. I think the province has a role in helping that. I think another thing we need to look at is how affordable it is for someone to work in those industries. We need to look at, are we paying enough? Is the minimum wage we pay someone in hospitality or in tourism enough for them to want to be in that industry and to stay in their small community and be able to survive? So we need to look at wages. We need to look at affordable housing. That's part of it as well. As you know, if you're not making a lot of money, you need to be able to afford a place to live. Often that's not possible. In Coburg here alone, a 1-bedroom apartment costs almost the same as it does in downtown Toronto. So people have to go to where the money is to earn that. So we need to fix income, we need to fix the cost of housing, and we need to make ways for people to get into our towns.
Thank you, Bruce. And our final response to this question will come from Dorothy.
Thanks. First of all, I have to give kudos to Trent Hills as doing a phenomenal job, both at nurturing artists as well as marketing artists. I've never seen a community, and I was astounded when we moved there, that was jam-packed, whether it was music, visual arts, West Bend, CDHS Jazz, Warkworth in terms of the community there. It's vibrant and doing a phenomenal job. When you look at how Trent Hills has succeeded at this, I would put them as a standard for other small communities. So if they're hurting, if they're having issues, I can only imagine what it's like in others. we need to help as a province. And one of the things that we've been looking at is hubs and looking at business hubs that allow access to technology to help businesses become more competitive, and the arts and community absolutely is part of that as well.
Thank you. We'll go now to our final question, which is actually a three-part question. The first part, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. We often hear from businesses in Trent Hills that accessing government grants and funding programs is challenging. The application process can be complex, time-consuming, and often designed with larger businesses and/or urban centers in mind. How will you work to improve access to funding opportunities for small businesses in rural Ontario? And our first response will come from Bruce, please.
Oh, thanks for that question. I think part of the problem in how the red tape and bureaucracy is created is by who's in charge right now. And the Conservatives and the Ford government definitely do favor large corporations, big box stores, and manufacturers as such. So that's where they start putting together their policies and their procedures. An NDP government is interested in helping everyone. We are not beholden to major corporations and developers. So our focus would be on workers and small businesses, and our bureaucracy and our red tape, because that's what they are at the end of the day, would reflect the needs of those communities.
Thank you. Our next response will come from Dorothy, please.
Thanks very much. I'm not sure what the tenure is of the folks that are watching right now, but I have two words in terms of helping folks get grants, and that's Lou Rinaldi. As a three-term MPP within our riding, Lou was dogged, and so was his office. And I think everyone who's lived within Trent Hills will attest to that in terms of the degree to which the support but also the humility. Lou would be embarrassed if there was a Trillium grant. He would say, that wasn't me, that I didn't do that. That was, yeah, I may have facilitated, but why am I making that announcement? We need to get back to a government that is about public service instead of personal gain. And I'm really looking forward to bringing back the Lou Rinaldi way of facilitating grants and getting money into our communities to help them out.
Thank you. And our final response to that question will be from Maxwell, please.
Thank you. We need to cut red tape. We need to streamline how grants can be accessed and applied for. We also have to acknowledge that this government is making things harder to access on purpose, so you don't access those funds. For example, I'm still waiting for my $200 from Doug. I don't know if it got caught in the mail, but there's a reason why they put these hurdles up. It's so that the funds don't actually get in your pocket. We need to remove red tape, streamline application processes. The internet should make things easier. You shouldn't have to go to 10 different websites to find out how to apply for things or where to get the right paperwork. We need to streamline things.
Thank you. We'll move on to part B of this question. This again will have a 1 minute response time from each candidate. We hear the same challenge from festival and event organizers when accessing government grants and funding. The process is very competitive, and it is difficult to compete with larger events or urban centers. Festivals and events are key to a strong tourism economy in Trent Hills. How will you work to improve access to funding opportunities for festivals and events in rural Ontario for communities like Trent Hills? And our first response will come from Dorothy, please.
Thanks very much. I'm really excited about our current Liberal Party and the fact that rural and northern as well has become an absolute priority. Through our AGM in this past fall, we've actually set up a rural and northern commission that is within our constitution. The focus absolutely is recognizing the fact that both rural but also small and medium-sized businesses are the engine of our economy. And when we turn our back on that, we turn back on the prosperity of our entire province. I'm someone who's chosen rural after living urban. I've lived in Toronto. I actually grew up in Muskoka. I've chosen Trent Hills. Oh, sorry, my goodness. I've chosen Northumberland. Look, I'm already back in Campbellford as a place to live because of all the advantages. It's up to us now, and for me to fight for that so that we do get those dollars and we are competing then with urban in a more effective way.
Thank you. Our next response to this question will be from Maxwell, please.
Thank you. We need to empower municipalities. We need to stop the downloading and make sure that municipalities can spend money on the things that they actually want to spend money on. Events like the Port Hope Fall Fair, the Coburg Waterfront Festival, the Jazz Festival, these are all things that are municipality driven, and we need to make sure that they're not being shouldered with things that should have never been their responsibility in the first place, so that they can focus on creating these third spaces, creating events that people love to go to, and creating a sense of community. They don't have the funds to do this without raising property taxes when all of these other responsibilities are on their shoulders. So we need to empower municipalities first because they're the ones in the community.
Thank you. And our final response to this question from Bruce, please.
Thank you. Again, to sort of echo Max a bit, the NDP has committed to uploading some of the major expenses for municipalities, transit, attainable housing and such. That will free up funds for the municipality to put into the arts. My wife is an artist and an art teacher. We travel across Ontario to festivals and galleries. It's a very important part of our lives. We realize how important it is for building community, how important the arts are for nurturing young children in the love of all the arts, whether it's music, drama, visual arts, dance. And if we free up municipalities to look after their citizens first, let the province deal with the issues that are provincial, again, transit and housing, then they can find them, they will have the resources needed to help support the arts in a much better way. If you talk to people in the NDP, we are pro-arts, we will find money for the arts.
Thank you. And now moving on to part C of this question, and each candidate will have 30 seconds for their response. And the question, will you work to ensure the funding application process is streamlined or simplified for both businesses and not-for-profit organizations? First response from Maxwell, please.
In short, yes. Working in IT, I understand how convoluted things can be, and I also understand how easy things can be when they're done intentionally. So we absolutely need to streamline these processes, get money in the hands of small businesses so that they can continue to allow their communities to thrive.
Thank you. Our next response will be from Bruce, please.
Again, absolutely yes. We need to streamline. There's no reason why an application process should prevent someone from carrying on the activity they want to. I said earlier, my wife was an artist, and I have seen some of when she was practicing artist before becoming a teacher. The Arts Ontario grants were so convoluted, you needed to have an MBA to figure out how to be an artist to hang a picture. And that needs to change. There's no reason to put roadblocks up for people. We need to get the money to the hands of the people who are going to do what they need to do with the money.
Thank you. And our final response to this question from Dorothy, please.
I was a business owner for 8 years within Campbellford, and I've owned businesses prior to that. I look at our slate of candidates within the Liberal Party. These are not career politicians. All right, these are people who have come from industry, they've come from healthcare, they've come from science. All of them have relevant life experience and know when something is convoluted because people don't know what they're doing. We currently have a government of career politicians, which is why we have a convoluted process. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the original questions. We now have a question from the audience, and I'd like to call upon John Russell, Executive Director of the Campbellford Memorial Hospital Foundation, who will be asking the first question from the audience. And for this question, each candidate will have a response time of 90 seconds of 1.5 minutes. So please, John, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to ask this question. I was kind of surprised healthcare hasn't come up yet, but I'll be the first one to present it. Certainly, as my position as the executive director of the Hospital Foundation in Campbellford, healthcare is a significant economic driver for attracting new businesses and residents to the area. And quite frankly, I'd be interested in knowing the position of each of the candidates in the future of Campbellford Memorial Hospital, specifically our plans for redevelopment.
Okay, our first response to that question will be from Bruce, please.
Thank you for the question. Well, first of all, I didn't know that there was a plan for a redevelopment of the hospital. It's good to know. But I can tell you that as far as healthcare is concerned, the NDP has a very strong policy on that. Northumberland is short about, 15,000 people in Northumberland don't have a family doctor. And I know that the farther you get from Cobourg, the harder that gets. So we're going to hire immediately, within the next few years, 3,400 doctors. We are going to hire 25,000 new nurses to fix the nursing shortage. We are going to put in place a nurse-patient ratio, make sure the nurses have time to do their jobs, make sure the patients get the care they need, and to keep nurses in this career much longer. We will pay them better. We will not take them to court for their to get raises. We're going to open up more spots for residents, and that would be a big part of a hospital's mandate, would be to have more residents come in, including foreign trained doctors. There are about 11,000 foreign trained doctors in Ontario right now, including, I know a young man here in Cobourg, grew up in Cobourg, went to Western for his science degree, couldn't get into Ontario University despite amazing marks for his medical degree, so he went to Ireland. He can now not get a residency spot. He wants to be a family doctor in Northumberland County. So we need to make that easier and more available. We need to get rid of the profit factor in healthcare. We do not need private hospitals. We do not need private clinics. We do not need private corporations supplying nurses to those hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next response to John's question is from Dorothy, please.
Thanks. I wish I had an hour and a half versus a minute and 30 seconds. Campbell Memorial Hospital is a jewel that's been allowed, unfortunately, to deteriorate very badly, just because of lack of investment. The campus of care is exactly the type of format or idea that our party has embraced. It was when I looked at it, actually, it was in 2022 when I sat down with Jeff Kosnick with the hospital, and like this is fantastic. This makes perfect sense in terms of having all the disciplines together along with long-term care. And then seeing the Curls donate that property outside of town near West Bend, I'm like, wow, everything is in place. Why is this being approved? I understand that I guess on the Mr. Pacini's what's the word I'm looking for, pamphlet, that it is on I guess it's in the budget. I think that's what was said. In speaking, and I actually had a conversation with our folks at OLP, and they echoed this is the way that healthcare is going. It is such a great design. Would they approve it? I can't speak on that, but I do know Minden is open again. So we have a party that is concerned about rural healthcare, and we'll make it a priority.
Thank you. And our final response to John's question will come from Maxwell, please.
Thank you. Let's be clear about something. Healthcare is not a business. It should never be used as a way to save money. Anytime elected officials talk about efficiencies, what they really mean is cuts. Healthcare is a human right. It's something that we should all have access to from birth to death, especially in rural communities. I absolutely love the plan to redevelop the Campbellford Hospital. In fact, I wish it was even grander. There is a huge demand for more housing in this part of town, this part of Ontario. Ontario is growing, And one of the things that we're consistently seeing a lack in is mental health supports. I think a beautiful setting like Trent Hills would be a great place to have something like inpatient mental health care. If anything, I think we should go bigger with the Campbellford Hospital because Ontario is growing and there is going to be a demand. We need to meet that demand before it hits a crisis level.
Thank you. So now we do have time for a couple of questions from the audience. So what I would ask is please raise your hand and try to keep your questions concise. And candidates will have 1 minute to respond to these questions. So do we have any questions from the audience? Adrian. Thank you. Please share your question.
Hi, everybody. When I woke up this morning, the first thing I read on the news was regarding the cuts to programming at the local colleges, particularly Loyalist. And there was some serious cuts at St. Lawrence as well, and a lot with the cost of living. You know, I have a child attending college right now. We you know, there's a lot of commuting rather than moving away. So what is the plan to mitigate the local colleges from losing all these programs? Or what is your position on that?
Let's hear from Dorothy first, please, and a 1 minute response.
100%. We need to restore the funding. The Ford government, after when they came in, immediately said, we're going to have a 10% tuition reduction. And not the government, it was pointing to our post-secondary institutions saying, reduce your tuition by 10%. Which is literally reduce your revenue by 10%. Well, we're all business people here. How do you reduce revenue? Well, you either have to cut programs or you have to find another revenue source. Well, they found another revenue source in international students. And then now get lambasted saying, why did you let all these international students in? Well, what else could they do? This is a government that was unconscionable in the way that they hobbled all of our institutions. It's really only the largest ones that survive, leaving others now to, well, how do we do this? Well, we're going to have to cut programs. So how is the government that's supposedly pro-business cutting funding to post-secondary?
Thank you. Our next response to Adrian's question will be from Maxwell, please.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Dorothy said. International students should have never been on the line to pay for colleges. They messed up big time. We never had enough housing to start with to bring in all these international students. It's affected people in a lot of horrible ways. We need to fund colleges. There is a green transitioning happening in the future. We all want clean drinking water, fresh air to breathe, and there's industry coming that can help meet these needs. But we need to train people for this workforce. We're going to need welders. We're going to need HVAC technicians. We're going to need so many vocational skills, and post-secondary education is the way to do that. We have to create learning pathways, and we need to fund these pathways because investing in education isn't losing money. It's investing in a workforce and it creates value. So we need to absolutely make sure post-secondary education providers have the funding that they need to create the next generation workforce.
Thank you. And our final response to Adrian's question will come from Bruce, please.
Thank you. It's not only community colleges that are now seeing this pressure. I saw in the news yesterday that York University in Toronto is closing 18 programs next September to enrollment. So it's hitting all levels of post-secondary education. We are seeing it hit the colleges first, but it's going to travel throughout the universities as well. The NDP will permanently increase the base funding for Ontario's post-secondary sector. We'll restore it back to a point where the government, the provincial government, is the major contributor to funding for the universities like it used to be. We'll also fix OSAP. We will change all of the loans to grants, and the long-term goal is full funding for students for university and college.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? We have time for one more from the audience, if anyone else has a question. Mike.
Thank you, Dale. Something that was brought up by all the parties here is the elimination of development charges to help with the housing, the lack of housing. With the elimination of development charges, which help fund recreation in our communities, help fund libraries and other infrastructure in our communities. What is your plan, and how do you plan on changing and getting the funds to municipalities that those development charges currently raise from developers and growth paying for growth within our municipality without it going on the back of businesses and residents in increased taxes?
Thank you. For our first response, a 1-minute response, let's hear from Maxwell, please.
Well, as I mentioned before, we have to stop the downloading. It is a really unfortunate situation that municipalities have found themselves in. Either you have development charges or you raise property taxes. You can't get the money from nowhere. So the province really needs to step in. We need to pay for transit. We need to pay for affordable housing. We need to pay for all the infrastructure that's been unfairly downloaded on the municipalities so that their funding can go towards the things that actually matter in their community.
Thank you. Our next response to Mike's question will come from Bruce, please. 1 minute.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the NDP will not eliminate development fees. We think that these large corporate developers do need to pay their share for taking up our time in our community and using our infrastructure, using our schools. So we need to get some benefit from them as well. So development fees will stand. But also what will help municipalities is we will upload the cost of transit and affordable community housing back to the province, freeing up more funds for the municipality to provide the services they need to provide. We don't think that all homes need to be driven by profit. We think the province has a role in building homes, and that will take some of the pressure off communities with these fees. And the large developers from Vaughan region, they can pay their share. They need to pay their share. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final response to Mike's question will come from Dorothy, please.
So and not to disagree with Bruce, but we've done that before. As much as the developers are paying the cost, they're passing this on to the customer. All right. It's not like they're paying them and then they're selling the house. It's added on to the price of the cost. So when you keep it there, it's still being paid for. The key is to removing it, but then compensating the municipalities through an alternate method, through a fund that is geared towards what the municipalities require versus just having this on the backs of the people buying the homes. And that in itself, I mean, we've costed in some cases $170,000 added onto the price of a home because of those development charges. Like anything that's a hidden cost, it can increase without us even knowing. When we eliminate that and then we look at what communities actually require, it's a much more transparent process and it's not on the backs of consumers.
Thank you. So that concludes all of our questions for this forum. We will now move into closing remarks from each of the candidates. Each of them will have 90 seconds to give their closing comments, and we're going to go in the reverse order from the introductions at the beginning of the session. So we'll first be hearing from Dorothy, please, for your closing remarks.
Thanks a lot, Dale. And I really need to thank all the folks who have taken time out of their day to ask questions and to listen to us. It's sad that we don't have our current provincial member of parliament to also share what the plans are for the government other than a mandate. Advanced polls open today. How many of us have our voter card? in the mailbox. I don't. I don't know if it's with Maxwell's $200. This was a rushed election designed that was purely self-serving, unnecessary, and expensive. Who has an election in February? It was a set election. It was in June of 2026. Maxwell, again, I'm quoting you all over the place here, but we had a year to get prepared for that, a little bit more than that, to reach out to our communities. Our riding is huge. It's massive. And I'm feeling cheated over the opportunity to visit people in Campbellford, to visit people in Hastings, in Brighton, in Newcastle. Instead, I have to rely on paid dials. I have to rely on phone calling, and it's just not enough. And it's basically been designed, I think, to disenfranchise. They know that an election with a low turnout favors the incumbent. Don't let them do that. Get out, vote, and vote for the person who best represents Northumberland. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Our next candidate for closing remarks will be Bruce, please.
Thank you to the Chamber for inviting us. This has been a very pleasant experience. It's nice. I'm new to politics, and I've enjoyed my conversations today. In tough times, who can you trust to help you? 7 long years with Doug Ford have cost us all. His bad deals and wasteful scandals have made life harder for working families, young people starting out, and our senior citizens. He delivers for wealthy insiders, but never for the rest of us. In this election, Mart Stiles and the Ontario NDP have a plan to fight the rising cost of food, hire and train more doctors and nurses, build homes we can afford, fix our schools, and defend Ontario jobs. Doug Ford remains focused on wacky, expensive projects and distractions like a magical tunnel under the 401 and beer and corner stores. And then Doug Ford's hero, Donald Trump, becomes the U.S. president, and all hell breaks loose south of our border. And what does Doug do? He quits his job. The man who says he will protect Ontario quits the fight just as it's beginning. And then he has the audacity to ask for his job back. Well, Mart Stiles and the NDP, we can beat Doug Ford. We can put people first. We can afford homes. We can afford healthy food and to see a family doctor when we need to. Doug Ford puts his wealthy insiders first every single time, and he'll do it again if we let him. But there is hope. Ontario should be a place full of opportunity, and it will be again with Mart Stiles and an NDP government. You can trust us on that.
Thank you, Bruce. And finally, for closing remarks, let's move to Maxwell, please.
Thank you so much. Again, I just wanted to thank the organizers and for everybody who's here participating. I also especially want to thank Dorothy and Bruce. I'm also new to politics. I can't imagine better candidates to share the stage with, so thank you, both of you. As I said, I'm just a normal small town guy. I was born and raised in Port Hope. I love Northumberland. It's my favorite place in the world. I can't imagine living anywhere else. I want to retire here. As I said, we're all great candidates. What comes down to why we're here is picking a leader for Ontario. I don't think Bonnie Crombie's it. I lived in Toronto. I can see the effects of what restricting the housing supply has done to young people. I think Mike's the guy. Also, having worked in technology for the last 15 years, I think we have a momentous opportunity to strengthen our economy and create good green jobs. Ontario has all the talent, resources, and people to be a world-leading economy. We have an over-reliance on the United States as a trading partner, and it's put us in a vulnerable position. We need to rapidly shift our supply chains to focus on the province and country with more diverse trade partners. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you, Maxwell. I would now like to introduce and welcome our Trent Hills Chamber of Commerce Board Chair, Carrie Gray, who will share her closing remarks.
Hi, everyone. I really wanted to take this opportunity to just say thank you to everyone for joining us today for this important discussion. And as a special, I'd really like to thank Dale Bateman, our moderator. We couldn't have done today without you and you guiding our conversations. And to our candidates, Bruce, Maxwell, and Dorothy, thank you for taking the time to share your perspectives and priorities with us. We also want to extend our appreciation to our chamber members who participated with us today. Your engagement and interest in this election are essential as we work together to support a strong and prosperous business community in Northumberland and Peterborough South. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce at Trent Hills, thank you again. And we encourage everyone to stay informed and engaged as we approach the election day.